Hi, and welcome to the Future of Dermatology podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Faranak Kamangar, board certified dermatologist. We are here to talk about anything and everything dermatology related. You'll hear from me and my guests who are dermatologists, physicians, experts, scientists, residents, and medical students in the field of dermatology. We publish weekly, so if you like what you hear, hit that subscribe button and show us some love, and thank you for joining us. Welcome to the Future of Dermatology podcast. I'm Dr. Faranak Kamangar, board certified dermatologist. Today is a very exciting topic. We're going to be getting a little bit more nitty gritty in detail about the dermatology application process. This is somewhat of a notorious process. Usually it's known to be kind of difficult and lots of barriers and challenges, and it's one that we can't get enough advice on. So today we have a really cool format. I'm joined by Payton Smith, one of our SF Derm medical students. He is a third-year medical student doing a clinical research fellowship at UCSF, University of California, San Francisco, with Dr. Bhutani and Dr. Liao. So he is getting prepped just imminently to start this application process, is right at the impetus of it. And we are also joined by Dr. Mitch Davis, who is going to be filling us with all of his wisdom. He just went through this process and successfully matched at an amazing program. He's starting at the University of Arizona Department of Dermatology this upcoming July. So congratulations on that. And I will let the two of you take it away. Thank you both so much for joining. Do either of you want to add any more about what you're doing now or just anything to the bio?
Yeah, I can add a little bit more. Thank you, Dr. Kamangar, for that introduction. So I know Mitch very well from working with him at UCSF, and he's given me so much advice along the way. And I just thought, how cool would it be to have this advice recorded and put out there for everyone else, because Mitch has the best advice, and he is a great friend. So I'm excited for our conversation today.
Thanks, Peyton. I don't have much to add to the bio. I just want to add that I was so excited when Peyton reached out about this, because you two are two of the best people I've ever known. And we had such an amazing time at the SF Derm conference. And I think as a group, Peyton, we just couldn't stop talking about how awesome you are, Farah. And it's just great to be able to meet with you guys again.
Yeah, thank you both so much. I'm really excited to actually hear this conversation. So Peyton, we'll let you take it away.
I would love to. So Mitch, just kind of generally, can you describe your application process kind of broadly, and what do you think made your application stand out the most?
Yeah, so I'll try to do my best to not bore you guys too much, but my application process was extensive because I ended up matching on my third try in applying to dermatology. So to give you a little background on how that all happened, I was actually pursuing probably radiology in medical school. Until late in my third year, I did a derm rotation, and I just discovered that I found my people. And, that was exciting, but I also realized, like, oh my gosh, I love this specialty. That's one of the hardest specialties to get into. And I knew that I'd be fighting an uphill battle. So I just had to make a decision whether or not to go for it. And fortunately, I was able to understand that this is what I wanted to do, and I was willing to do whatever it took to match. And so late in my third year actually is when COVID happened, and so a lot of networking opportunities, research opportunities actually shut down. And so I was like, oh man, how am I going to do this? And so I have a wonderful wife, Anna, and she's a great teammate of mine. And basically we came to the decision that we would go for dermatology the first year without doing a research year, because a lot of research years had shut down. And we had fortunately met some people who had matched into dermatology after doing an intern year, a full intern year, and then after having done a research fellowship as a full board certified doctor, and then they matched. And so we knew that there were kind of back doors into dermatology if necessary. So we went for it during medical school, and I didn't match. And honestly, I wasn't too shocked, but I learned a lot from that process. And then it was just from that point, it was just, hey, do whatever you can. And I had some great mentors, great advice that we could dive into. But I did my intern year, and then I applied again to dermatology, didn't match, and then I went and did a clinical research fellowship with you, Payton. And so I was one of the MD fellows working with you guys at UCSF, and I was fortunately able to match into dermatology the third time. So I know that was way more than you probably wanted, but I'm happy to dive into any part of that.
No, the details are amazing, and actually, it's so funny. It's not dissimilar from, because I kind of decided later on. This was a million years ago, so my story is probably super irrelevant now because you've had the challenges of COVID and all these different things. But I remember this like feeling. It was kind of more. I think it was the end of my third year or beginning of my fourth year, and I was totally going to something else too. It's also one of those things in medical school, you don't get to see the dermatologist that often, right? But it's like, it's not an uncommon story that some people have known since they were 5 years old. I think Dr. Bhutani is one of those people. We talked about this, where I think just always knew she was going to do dermatology. But it's not uncommon a lot of times just to come into it a little bit later and you're like, oh my gosh, this is what I want to do. But then you feel so behind because you're like, I didn't start at age 5, so how do I catch up? And I think that's such a story that I hear so often. But I guess the moral of the lesson, like the story there, is just go for it. Once you get into dermatology, if you like it, you do the rotation and it feels like the place you should be, just go for it, right? That's amazing. Sorry, I'll let you guys take it away again.
No, thank you for sharing that. I think about it all the time, and it kind of scares me to think, what if I had jumped ship to something else? And I know that there are several other specialties out there which I would enjoy, but I'm so glad that I went for it and that I tried multiple times to get in, because I'm so happy and it ended up working out. And I think I would have kicked myself if I didn't give it everything, So.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that, Mitch. So then my follow-up question would be, what do you think made you successful in matching that third time into residency?
Yeah. I think, well, first of all, as we discussed, dermatology is just competitive. So everyone has to check the boxes, so to speak. People don't really slip by too easily and end up accidentally matching into their dermatology or tricking, programs into admitting them when they haven't done what everyone else has done, right? So it took some time, as Farah mentioned, catching up. I had to play catch up, and I ended up getting some great advice from my mentors at University of Arizona. And basically they said, hey, here's where you can improve, we'll help you as much as we can, but you got to kind of meet these standards of, experiences, research, mentors, and so forth. And so I had a path forward. And so I was just very persistent, and all the way through my fourth year, my intern year, I just tried to do as much research as I could, as many derm activities as I could, and then networking. I actually majored in business in college, and I took a semester-long class on networking and the importance of it in the business world. But it's just as important, for us as physicians and medical students to network. So I flew around the country working with different programs, introducing myself, and I just didn't give up on relationships that I had developed in the derm community. So to answer your question, I feel like I ended up being successful because of the relationships I developed. And also I sought advice from people I trusted, and I followed their instructions on how to overcome the deficiencies I had while playing catch up. And then finally, I think there's one point that if there's one thing that medical students, or I could communicate to medical students about applying to dermatology or any competitive specialty, it would be that you can't fear the failure. You can't fear failure because you'll regret it if you make decisions based on that fear. Now, when you're in medical school, match day is everything. It's what you look forward to. It's the pinnacle of your experience. You could imagine getting that letter on the stage and opening it up and matching to your dream specialty in San Francisco or wherever it is, right? And there's so much emotion and value placed on that moment. And so when I didn't match, people, especially medical students and like doctors around me, they showed me so much pity. In their minds, it was such a big deal, and they treated me with more pity than I received when my grandparents passed away. It was just this thing where it's like people felt so bad. I remember feeling like people felt uncomfortable looking me in the eye, and I almost wanted to wear a shirt that said, "Hey, I'm okay." Like, why is no one else okay? And so just, if you're okay to go through or risk going through a day when it's a little bit of a bummer that you didn't match the first time, if you're willing to suffer through that uncomfortable situation, it's well worth it, because you could keep trying for what you want to do, and you'll improve and grow substantially from that experience. I just kind of threw a lot at you there, but
no, I love that. And it's actually, I wanted to go back to your point about the business school versus medical school, because I think every other field, especially business, teaches you how to fail. They want you to fail. Like in Silicon Valley, one of the major things people say is fail fast, because many of your startups will fail. Your first company is probably not going to be your successful one. So like start it, get going, minimal viable product, get out there, fail fast, move on. So it's sort of like failure is just built in. Medical school, we've all been like probably these nerds who've gotten like A's our entire life, got into med school. Not every single person, but likely this is a story. You've never probably even been called into the principal's office. Likely. Can't, say that. Payton's looking like he might have been called into the principal's office. But for the most part, we're usually a cohort that maybe wasn't like failing things a whole lot. That's probably what you had to do to get into med school. So it's interesting that you bring that up. I think then the fear of failure, I think carries through. We feel it early on in like even med school, because we're applying to this really crazy, like challenging field. But then I see it in all my colleagues in different specialties too. They get to that fear at different levels of like our careers. And I mean, this is getting into a much broader thing, but total tangent here. But I think it goes into why business people have taken over healthcare and doctors have lost a little bit of the control in healthcare, because we don't approach it with that mindset of like, hey, you want this, go for it. You fail, no problem. So it's like, it's so interesting when you bring that up, that like dichotomy between like the business training of, yeah, network, fail, it's fine, do these things, versus in medicine, it's like it's not easy to go through these steps. So I love that. Basically, that was also a long tangent about, I love what you said about don't be afraid to fail. And like your colleagues shouldn't even look at you like it's a failure. You're just finishing medical school. I think you're not failing in life, right? Like you could do anything. Like the medical degree is one of the most valuable degrees in the world. You're about to be handed one, and your colleagues are looking at you like, oh no, you might have to fill out another application next year for, like, doesn't matter. You do it next year or even the year after. Fill out a couple applications. You'll get into the residency eventually. So I mean, it's easier. It's much easier to say that now, like being years removed from it all. When you're in it, it's like the end of the world. And there's a little bit of the pain that follows you. It's not like you're, years later, you're over it. There's still a little bit of like that, like, oh, but if I'd done this and I'd gotten into that program, and that still actually follows you years through. But I think that bravery is just amazing. Sorry, I'll hand it back to you, Payton.
Yeah. And Mitch, I'm so glad that you decided to talk about this today, because I feel that there's some misinformation out there. Like when I was, in my first and second years of med school, kind of asking around about dermatology, I had been told that after you don't match the first time, you might as well not even try again, because it got exponentially harder each time that you try to reapply. But after talking to Mitch and other people, finding out that actually some people consider it a strength, like if they reapply and they get to the interview portion and they get to talk about some challenges that they experienced. They can talk about, yeah, I didn't match. It was an extremely challenging point in my life. Here's what I learned from it. Here's how I improved my application. Here's how I'm so dedicated to dermatology that I'm going to reapply as many times as it takes until I get there. And also, even it's crazy because, like, I decided to do a research year at UCSF, and until I got here, I still really didn't know what like a fellowship was, a research fellowship for MD fellows. So, after getting your MD, after doing your intern year, I didn't even know that you could like do a fellowship in research or psoriasis that could let you work in clinic, let you see patients in the dermatology clinic, let you work on research and network, and that made your application, so much better. And I'm really glad that I got to work with people like Mitch, because it showed me that, obviously I'm going to try as hard as I can this cycle, but if it doesn't work out this time, then I know that there are great fellowships like what Mitch did, and that would definitely be something that I would be interested in, because I know that dermatology is what I want to do, and I'm not going to stop until I get there. But and then Mitch, you also brought up another point, and this is kind of off track, but I was actually talking about this with my co-fellow Katie today. We were just talking about how weird it is that a lot of schools have that, where you walk across the stage, you open the letter, and in front of basically the whole world, you have to say, here's where I matched. I'm just now finding out, along with all of you people. Apparently, some schools don't do that. My school does that. And we were just talking about, like, wow, I don't think that would fly in the business world or other places, because a lot of people want to hide those parts of their life. But in med school, we just kind of air it all out for everybody. But I thought it was interesting.
Yeah,
That's true. They
definitely.
should
It's a
almost have
crazy
like a
moment.
secret. Yeah, they should have like a secret ceremony for the dermatology applicants
Yeah,
with an open bar.
right, for sure.
You never know if there's going to be tears, whether it's like happy tears or sad tears. You just kind of have to put on a smile and show it to the world.
Right, definitely.
But then my last question would be, is there anything that you wish you had known during your application that you know now?
Hmm.
And we may have already talked about some things, but
Yeah,
if there's anything new, or we could rehash some of the old ones too.
yeah. I think that other than what we've talked about, um, I I thought that, or I underestimated how much of a growing experience it would be, and how beneficial. And I know you just kind of touched on this, but I feel like when I think back to where I was during my third year of medical school compared to now, and Payton, fortunately, you or unfortunately, I don't know how you view it, but you got to work with me, and you got to see how much I had to learn, in clinic and throughout the whole experience of applying, and then also working through a research fellowship. I feel so much more confident, and so I feel like I wish I understood that both routes, if you match your first time or you don't match, you're just going to be so much better for it. And it's just such a privilege just to be a medical student in the first place. Once you match into medical school, honestly, I feel like that's the toughest part. Despite everything I've been through with not matching, we're just so privileged to be able to work in the medical field. And so it's just kind of a win-win situation, I feel. No matter what, um, you're going to be you're going to gain valuable experiences and grow, and it's going to be fun and challenging. So I just wish that I would have understood that, hey, it's all good from here, kind of a deal. Just keep working hard, and no matter what happens, it's going to be great.
Yeah, that's so true, especially the part about, like being challenged and even just getting into med school. I remember one time I was like studying in college, like maybe, you know, a freshman or a sophomore or something like that. And someone asked me, you know, what my major was. And I told them that, you know, I was exercise science, but wanted to do pre-med. And the guy like looked at me and he was like, "Oh, well, you'll never be able to get into med school. Like it's way too hard." And from that moment on, I was like, you know what? I wanted to do this for me, but now I also need to do this to prove you wrong.
Right.
And the same thing, you know, has kind of happened with dermatology because it is, you know, so competitive. And I've definitely had people, you know, tell me before it's too competitive. Don't even waste your time. But yeah, I think that there's so much growth that can be made from that, and just being challenged in general. I think not enough people are challenging themselves, and I think it's a great opportunity.
Yeah, and Peyton and Farah, you also touched on this, but I just want to slip in there that it's very important to try to get good mentors. And I think I underestimated this because I believe that 90% of the medical field doesn't understand what I just went through, and that's even an option. They don't understand that these back doors, or a clinical research fellowship after an intern, they have no idea. And so I actually received some terrible advice from people that if I would have followed, it would have been terrible looking back. And they were doctors that everyone looked up to, that I could have easily just accepted it and followed their advice and just been in a much worse place than I am now. So a podcast like this, where you can hear someone's experience, you can hear what the reality is in this very specific situation of applying to dermatology. It's so important. It's so important to talk to people, to listen to stuff like this, so that you can be aware of, oh my gosh, there's this route for me that I could go down. And so that's the last piece that I would add, is that, you know, this is a very unique specialty to apply to because it's so competitive, and it's very important to get the right mentors to provide you with good, solid advice, because things change, and you need to get solid advice.
100%. I would agree, like at any stage. So now you'll be starting derm residency, and that's going to come with all of its own set of, you know, really fun things. And then again, like medical school, once you get in, you're in. So the hard part is done. But then you kind of get there and you realize, oh my gosh, there's a lot of studying to be done, and the boards will come up, and then the job search, and then figuring out what you want to do within dermatology. So like the mentorship, I think it's important to have good mentors to get in, but then it like amplifies. It's so much more important to continue those mentorships and networking for just building the future of what your career will look like too. So I would just 100% agree with you just really need really good mentors. The other piece of it, I just actually realized, I think I was a medical student when Dr. Bhutani was the fellow. So I was the Payton and Dr. Bhutani was Mitch. So that was really cute.
No way.
This was a while back now. I mean, only 2 years ago, we're only 25. But yeah, so it's actually really, really cool to kind of see that process. And then of course, then you kind of go through residency, and then you look for jobs, and then 5 to 10 years. So this like relationships that you build, not only does it not end, but the two of you will probably be working together so closely for the rest of your careers and checking in with one another at all the different stages. Like, I think we send each other job contracts, and, so it's like, it's not only that, it's amazing that you kind of get the mentorship and the networking to obviously get into dermatology. But another thing that I kind of look back, that year that you spend doing your research year, you build your career-long colleagues as well. And in addition to the knowledge that you gain, I mean, I think I did it as okay, I like immunology, psoriasis is cool, let's do it. And then now in my life, I do so much around inflammatory skin disease that you just kind of don't realize that at the time you're doing it because it's interesting and maybe for a specific purpose of like getting into dermatologists and that, but then it becomes such an important part of your life. So it's really cool. These are really cool experiences that just the road that it takes you down, and it ends up kind of changing how you practice dermatology too.
Yeah, definitely.
And Mitch, to kind of follow up on what you said, I don't have a lot of advice to give, but what I do think is that not only do you need great mentors, but you need a lot of mentors. And you kind of touched on this about how, sometimes people can give you bad advice. I'm not saying that any of my mentors have given me any bad advice, but there are just so many perspectives in dermatology and in medicine in general. And if you just, have your one mentor, you're going to get their perspective. And, there are just so many different perspectives out there. And I think you should, if you're interested in dermatology or, whatever specialty you're interested in, just, putting as many feelers out as you can and trying to get advice from as many people as you can. And then, being selective in the advice that you actually follow. And then, of course, if you can find a Dr. Kamangar, cling on to them as hard as you can, because people like that don't come around often. And I can say the same thing for Mitch. So you'll know him when you find him.
Oh my gosh, you guys are too sweet, and you're both amazing. I think that's the thing as well. I know Payton is going to do so amazing in the application cycle coming up, and Mitch as well. You are so just intelligent and hardworking, and it's actually interesting when you. And I've heard the story from many of our colleagues who are just completely on top of their game, and they talk about the feelings of having to apply and like overcoming deficiencies and things like that. And then you look at them as a whole person, you're like, there are no deficiencies. Like you are just a rock star and you're amazing. But this process just creates like these kind of these things we all have to overcome. So I think that's another important thing, to just keep holding each other up. Because I think when you're applying to dermatology, you've gone into med school, you've probably done really, really well in med school. So you are like at the top of your game, but the game just gets harder and harder. So I think it's just so important for everybody to just kind of hold each other up and make sure it's still fun, and that it doesn't arbitrarily, put any lasting negativity on anyone, because it is just a hard process to go through, but also super worth it and really fun.
Yeah, definitely. I'm so glad that I chose to do it. Yeah, it's been so hard, but it's like at this point I can't imagine having done anything else. So Payton, I'm glad you're doing what you're doing. You're doing all the right things.
Well, thank you. And what you said, Dr. Kamangar, about finding people to prop you up, Mitch Davis is a great person at doing that. He's the first person that I call when I'm like, oh shoot, what do I do? Or, I need somebody to build me up. He's a great person for that. So I'm glad I have that person.
And the really other fun thing is, I've seen over the years, is when our medical students and clinical research fellows go through residency, come out, and then become our colleagues. It's so fun. So I'm roping both of you in 3 to 4 to 5 years. You're going to have to come to Palo Alto Medical Foundation. That's the next step. I'm going to let you guys enjoy the process for a few years, and then hardcore recruitment will start.
That would be
because
amazing.
it's the same. Yeah, it's the same thing. Like when you find good candidates and good colleagues, you just want to hold on to them tightly. And I think programs all agree with that too, when they get a sense that they have a good candidate. And I think that's why mentorship and networking is so important, because they look to those networks of mentors to tell them like, okay, well, how is that person and what is it like working with them? So the whole process is it's like a full circle. Perfect. And then Payton, if that was the last question, we always have to end with, or did you have any other?
No, I'm excited for your question.
Yeah. So Mitch, we always, since it's the Future of Dermatology podcast, we always end with your thoughts on the future of dermatology. It can be very broad. It could be on the application cycle. It could be on just dermatology itself, things you're excited about, or things that you kind of see for the future of the field.
Yeah, I think that I'm probably a terrible person to ask, but I appreciate you asking me because I just feel like I have way more questions than I do, even predictions. I was so lucky to work with Payton and Dr. Bhutani, Liao, Dr. Ku at UCSF. We saw a lot of psoriasis patients and eczema patients, and we worked with a lot of biologics. So something that's been on my mind recently is just targeted therapies within dermatology, and just wondering, as we learn more and more about the immune system and the relationships with the immune system and inflammatory diseases, how many more targeted therapies are going to come out? How many more monoclonal antibodies are going to be developed that, just reduce side effects, all these conditions that were used to be treated by, more systemic medication? How targeted can we get, and how many different biologics are we going to choose from? Are we just going to have this laundry list where you have the every single disease matched up with every, a specific monoclonal antibody? So I think that's going to be cool, seeing how targeted we can get as we understand more, and seeing these pharmaceutical companies develop these amazing medications that Payton right now gets to see change lives. I felt like that was the coolest thing, seeing someone come in covered in psoriasis, get on a biologic, and then be able to wear a tank top for the first time in 30 years. It was so rewarding. So I'm really excited about that, but I'm wondering how far it'll go. And yeah, I think that'll be interesting. I know you're involved with AI, and I think that'll be interesting to see. It's humbling to start studying dermatology and realize, there's thousands of diagnoses you're supposed to master by the end of your your residency. But what role will AI play in knowledge? I guess the pool of knowledge within dermatology, and how will we use it to come up with better diagnoses and better treatments for our patients? So yeah, basically I gave you a nothing answer, but I do have a lot of questions. And
No, that's a everything
I'm
answer, and I
excited.
agree with you. It's so exciting, all the things that are coming out. I think when we were doing our year of clinical research and research fellow, we were studying things like Enbrel and Humira. Like that's how old we are.
Oh wow.
And then, to age ourselves, like Enbrel back then was pretty hot. Like it was effective, and now it's like somewhere on our list. Which we still use for certain patient populations, but so much has come out. So I think your generation is just so interesting, but also probably harder because so much is coming out so fast.
Yeah.
But so interesting, and just like so many targeted therapies. And Payton, I'd love to kind of ask you the same question too. I'm putting you on the spot.
Yeah, I mean, to go off of Mitch, I hope that there's a biologic for chronic itch patients, and that's something I kind of talked about on the last podcast. But we just really need the FDA to approve a biologic for chronic itch, and I'll be so happy when that happens.
Yeah, 100%. We actually still need to do a podcast to fully talk about your experience. That's still in the works.
Great.
Fantastic. Well, thank you both so much. This has been so fun, and you guys are just both so fantastic. So I'm so excited to see your journey through residency and being done, and the career development. And it's so great to just kind of see the trajectory of all the amazing things you're both doing.
Thank you. Thanks again for inviting me. I admire both of you so much. I feel so lucky. That's another reason why I'm so happy I didn't match, because I got to meet you two. I wouldn't have otherwise, maybe. And so I feel so lucky to know you two, and so happy to have a chance to chat with you.
Oh yes, that is so sweet.
Thank you, Mitch.
Yeah, thank you so much. And it's true, you just never know where life takes you. So it's so fantastic. Thank you both. Thank you for listening to the Future of Dermatology podcast. Remember to hit that subscribe button and share the podcast with your friends. The more you share and subscribe, the more we'll be able to grow and share our dermatology knowledge. If you have burning dermatology questions, feel free to leave them in the comment below, and we would love to address them in a future episode. And please note that this podcast is not intended to substitute for medical advice from your doctor.